Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel is Discerning What is True. Today is the second day of March 2024. My title of the book I'm sharing is called World's 16 Crucified Saviors, Chapter 25 by Kersey Graves. I wanted to share with you what this is what they show in Christianity. The Father, the Son, and the Spirit. You're going to notice this, the way they show it. And basically, they're saying they're all one, but yet three separate individuals. One, they all are God, as the circle represents, and the one at the top is Father. The one to the side here is Son, and the one to the this particular side is called the Holy Spirit. And when I was in seminary, all of us were basically believed all this stuff, you know. And this particular guy, Kersey Graves, is talking about simply is that this was the perspective long ago. Also, in the particularly the Oriental world, Chinese and also India taught this, and later on, basically the Christianity did also. So I just want to show you this symbol here. They're considered all God. That is all of them. My thinking simply is this all in some way simply is a characteristics of basically of the God. You know, in other words, one's being the older guy, supposedly. The next one's the son. Da, 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 da. Well, how does that derive? Well, I think it's simply characteristics of one God. Okay, but that would be similar to what we call um, the lack of a better word, the heathens thought that. You know, um, so it's just kind of, I don't know in that regard. I feel like sometimes this is just kind of like meshing things up. But I also think it's important that actually that Kersey Graves is going back in history and reporting this, although most of what he's sharing is coming from other sources also. So, but I said I was going to share that, so I'm going to share that. This is chapter 25. I'm going to be reading again from this World's 16 Crucified Saviors. This is called Absolution and the Confession of Sins of Heathen Origins. Some Christian writers have labored to make it appear that this is exclusively a Christian doctrine, while others have labored as hard to get out of their Bible or make the people believe that it is not therein taught. We shall show upon scriptural and historical authority um, that both are wrong. There can be no question as to this right, R-I-T-E, having existed outside of Christianity or of its being much older than Christianity. That is, history proves both. Nor can it be stressful, or I should say successfully denied that it is taught in the Christian scriptures, both the confessing of sins and that of forgiving sins. The Apostle James, with respect to the former, is quite explicit. He enjoins emphatically, quote, confess your faults one to another, end quote, James 5:16. The practice of forgiving sins is also enjoined, quote, forgiving one another is recommended both in Ephesians, that is in chapter 4, verses 32, and Colossians 3, chapter 3, verses 13. Quote, and whatever ye shall lose on earth shall be loose in heaven. Matthew chapter 18, verses 18, is interpreted as conferring the power to forgive sins. And then we remark that the practices both of confessing and forgiving sins are very ancient pagans' rites and customs. Speaking of their prevalence in ancient India, the author of the Anacapitalist remarks, quote, the person offering sacrifices makes a verbal confession of his sins and receives absolution, end quote. Auricular confession was also practiced among the ancient Mythos or Persians and the Parsis proper of the same country. Mr. Bonner, Ney, tells us, quote, they observed all the Christian sacraments, even to the laying on of hands in the confirmation, end quote. And the Christian, quote, father, one of the church fathers, Tertullian, also tells us that, quote, The priest of Mithra promises absolution from sin on confession and baptism, end quote. While another author adds that, quote, on such occasions, Mithra marked his followers, that is, the servants of God, in their foreheads, end quote, and that, quote, he celebrated the sacrifice of bread, which is the resurrection, end quote. In a collection of Jewish laws called the Mishnah, end quote, we are told the Jews confessed their sins by placing their hands upon a calf belonging to the priest, and that this was called the, quote, the confessions of calves, end quote. See Mishnah, that is in TOM 2, page 394. Confessing sins was also practiced in ancient Mexico, also under Numa Rome, whose priests, we are informed, had to clear their conscience by confessing their sins before they could offer sacrifices. The practice of confessing and forgiving sins is, as recommended in the Christian Bible and practiced by some of the Christian sects, has been the source of much practical, that is, evil, by furnishing a pretext and license to some extent for the commission of crime and sin. While I don't know what this means. SANS, sins can be so easily, I guess that means sin, someone messed up. While sins can be so easily obliterated, they will be committed, perpetrated without much remorse or restraint, end quote. In China, says the Reverend Mr. Pitrak, at 232, the invocation of omito is sufficient to remit the punishment of the greatest crimes, end quote. The same author tells us, quote, the ancient initiative of the pagans had tribunals of penance, where the priests, under the name of Rose, R-O-E-S, heard from the mouth of the sinners themselves the avowal of their sins of which their souls were to be purified, and from the punishment of which they wished to be exempted, end quote. That's in page 37. The granting of absolution for sin or misconduct among the earlier primitive Christians was so common that St. Cyprian informs us that, quote, thousands of repentance were granted daily, end quote, which served as an indirect license to crime. And thus the doctrine of divine forgiveness as taught by pagans and Christians has proved to be demoralizing in its effect upon society. And that is the end of chapter 25 today, a really short chapter. We'll get back to this. I'm going to be reading some other information here also for you today as the sun gradually comes out today. So we're going to end this at this point, and then we'll get into some of Gerald Massey's works here in a few minutes. All right. Thank you for being here. And I know that was short and sweet, but that's good. And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.